And it is time for Inside the Game with live insights from SAP. And for this, we're going to delve into the world of three-pointers and inside the mind of Stu Jackson, author of this segment involving the evolution of the game is attached to the three. First, the lowest percentage games this season, led by Detroit's historically low effort there. And the Grizzlies and Pistons have really had some brutal nights this season in regard to the three. In fact, I would imagine it's hard to have nights like that. And now the best percentages, and the attempts here have not been Houston outrageous. In all, 66 to 68% range. OKC closing February with a magnificent night. And in short, what we're trying to do is drive home the point of the importance of the three-point shot, where it is right now with the league, and Stu, where it is taking us, and how you might maybe, is it fair to say maybe soften that trip or that bumpy ride that we're on right now?
Yeah, you know, we're getting close here in the next couple seasons to the tipping point with the three-point shot, in my opinion. You know, you have a lot of nights where, you know, the game, the way it's played right now, the three-point shot, at least in the fans' mind, the most important play in the game of basketball, sort of like the home run in baseball, and it's a beautiful thing to watch, and it's an exciting play. It can really add drama to the game because if you're down, you always have the ability to catch up. But because we're in this age of analytics where it's statistically proven that taking more three-point shots and shooting a certain percentage versus taking two-point shots and shooting a higher percentage, you're better off taking the three. But what's evolved here is a situation where now the lowest team in the league in terms of the number of three-point shots taking in this era would have actually been the leader, you know, 12, 15 years ago. So the league is evolved into a three-point shooting league, or you get to the rim and score at the bucket. My fear is the game's becoming a little bit homogenous. It's not being diverse. And while it's still exciting to the fans, the question remains, is there a point where too much is too much and too many threes are being taken?
That's a good question, Sam. Would you like to take it?
I agree with Stu. I think look, I love the three-point shot. To me, it's a great weapon if you have guys who can shoot it. You know, the problem I have with it, when you're telling guys who can't shoot at all to still take that shot, because if they occasionally make one, that's better than anything else. I watched a game last night between Toronto and Washington. Washington was down 5, okay? They came down in 2 fast break situations late in the game, under 2 minutes, and turned down layups to try to make a 3. Now, you go back and replay that game. If they take the layups, they would have had the ball with 1 possession, down 1 point, with a chance to win the game. You go back and look at Toronto. Norman Powell turned down 2 open three-point looks, pump fake, drove to the basket, got 1 3-point play and a dunk, and that sealed the game for Toronto. It's when you shoot them, and it's who's shooting them. And again, it's knowing yourself. Norman Powell realized he's been struggling from the 3. So maybe that's the reason why you're open. Turn it down, get to the basket, take the sure 2, and it was a difference in the win between the Raptors and the Washington Wizards last night.
Well, this is the world we live in now. We shoot the 3. We've got spread offenses in football. So this is where we are going, and we wanted to get a word from the top. Commissioner Adam Silver at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference discussing the long ball among many topics. Let's listen.
I wouldn't necessarily say that if it's 120-point games on average that that's necessarily bad or good for that matter. I think, again, it goes more to the overall look at the game. As you said earlier, if our game really did evolve all into just dunking and three-point shots, I don't know. I think we'd probably want to take a fresh look at that. And the answer to your question, where do we want to be on the spectrum, I really do think somewhere in the middle.
All right, so interesting. Like you were saying, I think we strive for some sort of a balance, but we are training young players to run to that three-point arc, and that's where they have to be on the break or otherwise. So it's kind of conditioning players. But I want to get to the Houston Rockets because they are now, you know, Mike D'Antoni's got the lab coat on, and he's finally got his Frankenstein's monster in James Harden, who is making all of this happen. They're on pace to set the new mark for threes made set by the Warriors last year. They also lead in attempts. They're over 40 a game in terms of attempts. So my question to both of you is, if they have real success with this year, say they go to the finals or they win it all, are we at a place now where we will never go back to the way basketball was played? There won't be a semblance of how it was played previously before we got to this three-point era.
Well, we'll only go back if it affects the business. In other words, if they are successful, and it's yet to be proven that you can be successful shooting the three as much as Houston does, because you still have to defend, you still have to rebound. But if they are successful, we're a little bit of a copycat league, and more teams will continue to emulate and make personnel decisions based upon what the Houston Rockets have done. But my point is, if we get to a point where there's too much sameness, the game's not diverse, there are too many threes taken, and you have this homogeneous, non-aesthetic looking game, and it affects fans, then you have to change regardless of what the other teams do, because potentially it could affect the business.
So Sam, do you think then you have to hold on to some of the core principles that have made the game so great?
Absolutely. Look, the game has changed. Look, centers are now required to step outside and shoot threes. Regardless, I look at how great DeMarcus Cousins is. I used the word great, 15 feet in. But I watch DeMarcus Cousins shoot 4 or 5 threes every night. It's not the fact that he can't make them. It's the fact that when he's 15 feet in, he's an 80% scorer, because he's either going to score or get fouled most of the time. I let DeMarcus Cousins shoot all the threes he wants, because he's not going to beat me there. But I agree with Stu. It's all going to come down to what Houston does in the playoffs. If they make a deep, long run and have a lot of success, you're going to see more teams start to scout players that can shoot the three. Teams are going to play more wide open. The game is going to go that way. But if Houston falters and look bad in the playoffs, then everybody's going to pump the brakes a little bit and like, wait a minute now. Yeah, you can win games in the regular season like that, but at the end of the day, all this is going to be based on what you do in the playoffs. Yeah, you win games in the regular season, but it's about the playoffs and how deep you go and can you make a run for a championship. And if they do that, then you're going to see the game continue to go that way. But if Houston stumbles in the first or second round, then people are going to pump the brakes, especially if the game, if they don't look good in their losses.
All right, well, to take this to even another level now, Stu Jackson has thought this through with some possible changes, and these are you're just spitballing here a little bit about some things that you might do to the game, rule changes involving the three-point shot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and a couple of them are a little bit wild, but this is my memo to the NBA league office and operations about some possibilities about how we may bring some balance back into the game and perhaps make it a little bit look not as homogenous. One is to, listen, you could change the three-point line and eliminate the corner three-point shot, which is currently at 22 feet. Out among the arc, it's 23 feet 9 inches. Just have a 23 9-inch arc and cut it off. All right, that's one thing you could do in terms of reducing the number of threes. You could keep the three-point line, but only make it in effect for certain parts of the game, whether it's the last 6 minutes of the game or 2 minutes at the end of every period, where the three-point shot is actually in effect, and maybe the entire overtime period. That would be another way to incentivize teams to take more mid-range shots. You know, it still would keep spacing, hopefully, but you'd have a little bit more diversity in the game with the mid-range and the long range. You could change the metric. Everybody's talking about metrics. Make the three-point shot something less than 3 points. Now, that might be a little bit confusing to fans, all right, and you may have to reconfigure the scoreboard, but at least from an efficiency standpoint, it would reduce the level of efficiency of taking three-point shots. And then finally, I'm taking a suggestion here from Greg Popovich in that, he alluded to the fact that maybe sometimes inside shots at certain times of the game should be worth three-point shots, and perimeter shots should be worth only two-point shots. So it's just a few things. A little bit out there, a little bit wild.
I can't keep score of that.
Yeah, but, when you're spitballing and trying to be innovative, you got to consider everything.
No, I love some of the suggestions. The half points now, I have enough trouble, keeping track with the half points.
I do like just making it one distance, moving that corner three, expanding the floor a little bit, make that corner three the same distance all the way around, because that difference of almost 2 feet is a huge difference in guys shooting that three-point shot. So I think the change needs to be made is make the line the same distance all the way around. And then you're going to see coaches coach a little different, because right now, you tell your best shooters, run to that corner. That's the easiest shot there is in the NBA, a corner three. And so it'll change the dynamics of the game, and it'll change how coaches coach, and it's going to change who you put in that corner. When I played for Flip, the best three-point shooter was always in the opposite corner, because we were going to swing and get the ball to the corner every time. So I think moving it back and making the line uniformly, I think that would do a big deal
Well,
make a lot of difference.
Yeah, but really good stuff, Stu. It's interesting because of the perception of the game, where it's going, and some things to really ponder as we move forward.
Yeah, because the NBA, they want to get out ahead of things. You don't want to wait till it becomes an issue. Get out ahead of it.
Very good. All right, and remember, for more stats, go to NBA.com/stats with insights from SAP. That's where we get them to you.